The time to start a food forest is now, so what are you waiting for? I'm a Gen Xer, and it breaks my heart to see the way that the world is moving. Contrary to what you may see on social media and the legacy media, Gen Xers love Millennials and Gen Z. You're our children and our grandchildren. This video is dedicated to the younger generations. I think it's more important now than it ever has been in my lifetime to grow your own food. Before I get into the actual mechanics of how you start a food forest, I'll talk about a few plants that I think are a cornerstone of any food forest in Florida. So let's get started on that. The plants that I talk about in this video are going to be good for the South in general and Florida specifically, but the principles are the same. This is Mexican sunflower. This should be one of your main chop and drop sources. It's very high in nitrogen, and it's a dynamic accumulator. Brings up a lot of nutrients from the soil. It's very easy to propagate. You can literally take one of these woody stems, put it in the soil in the summer rainy season, and it's going to grow. You chop it over and over in the summer and put it around the root ball of a plant or tree that you want to fertilize. This is Pigeon Pea. It's a nitrogen fixer, so it adds nitrogen to the soil. You can use it for chop and drop, and of course it also creates edible peas. This plant stacks functions big time and is a must-have in Florida. You absolutely want to have bananas in a Florida food forest. This is an example of a banana patch that I specifically use for chop and drop. I chopped this banana plant down about 2 months ago, feed it to some of the fruit trees in this row, and it's already grown back 5 feet. And obviously bananas are a good food source. Any kind of hibiscus is a great addition to a food forest in Florida, in my opinion. The leaves, flowers, and calyxes are edible and a little bit medicinal. Some varieties of hibiscus are annual, some are perennial. This happens to be a perennial variety, and it's providing shelter for this tiny little sugar apple tree. Cranberry hibiscus is also a great addition with its gorgeous purple leaves. Katuk is a must-have food forest plant in Florida, in my opinion. The leaves are edible. It makes edible berries. Katuk is a very good source of protein, and you can use this as chop and drop. It grows back very fast. As you can see here, I chopped this about a week ago, and the top has already got a lot of new growth. You can take a cutting of Katuk and just stick it in the ground, and it's going to grow. That's how I've propagated it all over my food forest. Very, very easy to propagate. Another must-have is Chaya. It's a very, very good source of protein. You do have to boil the leaves first. This is yet another example of a plant where you just take a cutting and stick it in the ground, and it's going to grow. Here's a good example of Chaya. There was a plant here that was blown over by the hurricane, and then the weeds took over in this area, but Chaya dominates. Lonegevity spinach is a very important food forest plant in Florida. It's edible, medicinal, and it's a great ground cover. This is yet another example of a plant that take a cutting, stick it in the ground, and it's going to grow. Sweet potatoes are a must-have plant in a Florida food forest. They make a great ground cover. You can eat the leaves. Of course, you eat the tubers, the potatoes themselves, and they're so easy to propagate. You can just make a cutting, stick it in the ground, and it's going to grow. You can also propagate from the tubers by putting them in the ground. They'll grow. And as you're storing the sweet potatoes, many times little slips will grow on the potatoes themselves. You can just stick those in the ground and they grow. Sweet potatoes are considered a staple crop. They provide a lot of carbohydrates. You can get very, very large yields. Let's get started. This is the 10-minute portion. I'm going to create a food forest island. You have to start somewhere. Creating one island is a start. You can create another island the next day, another island the next day after that, and eventually over time, you connect those islands and you're going to have a food forest. I've chosen this spot for this food forest island. I'm going to plant this black sapote, aka chocolate pudding fruit tree right here. So let me show you how it's done. This is a perfect time to plant. We've had a lot of rain in the last couple of weeks, as you can see by these full buckets of rainwater and this rainwater in my cart. The soil is already very moist. Now I have this rainwater to make it even better. So we'll start out by digging a hole. Looks like decent soil here. There is a root in the way, so we're going to have to get around that. You want the hole to be roughly twice the size of the pot. Get some of this debris out of the way, which we're going to use later. There's that root. Probably a pine tree root. Compost. This is really good soil. Kogan grass. Put the tree down in here. You want the soil surface from the pot to be just a little bit higher than the ground surface. I'll put some of the soil back in the hole. That looks good to me. Now, push this original soil back in a little bit. Give it a good soaking. You want to remove all the tape off of the cardboard before you put it on the soil. It's just healthier that way. Now we want to place the cardboard around this fruit tree. It's going to act as a weed barrier, and it's going to break down and add nutrients to this soil. All depends on how big you want your island to be. Let's make a decent sized island here. That was the easy part. Okay, we've got that down. We want to get the cardboard moist so that it doesn't act as a barrier to moisture going through to the soil. Okay, that's great. Now we want to add biomass. What we're doing here is adding fertility for years to come. I'll just start out with whatever is laying around. If you're worried about where you're going to find material to put here, you have weeds. Let me show you. This Kogan grass is an absolute nightmare as a weed. It's a rhizomatic grass, so its roots go under the ground up to 4 feet away and sprouts new pieces of grass, and then another 4 feet. It can take over an area pretty quickly. I'm going to use it to my benefit. I have a never-ending supply of Kogan grass. So you definitely don't want to use any of the roots in your biomass. That's just going to cause problems. That's why using that hedge trimmer is very good. A regular string trimmer might actually cut it too close to the ground and you could get roots. Okay, we still need some more. Okay, now let's go find some of those plants that I showed you before. Mexican sunflower. Give the tree a little breathing room here. Let's chop a little bit of this pigeon pea. It'll grow back. And then how about some banana leaves while we're at it? So that's probably good enough for day one. Ideally, I would have some wood chips or palm mulch on there. I'm running a little low on that right now. But in the future, if I get that, it's not a big deal to add more. You're going to be adding more and more over time anyway. Let's add some biodiversity in the form of plants, live plants. There's a hibiscus growing really close already. I think we're good to go there. Just right over here, we've got longevity spinach growing. I'll harvest some of this longevity spinach. This longevity spinach will grow just by taking a cutting and putting it in the ground. But just to make it a little easier, I'm going to pull some up by the roots. Here's a big long one. I'm simply going to push this whole stem underneath my cardboard. It's going to grow that way, especially now in the rainy season. Same thing here. Over time, it's going to push through the cardboard as well. I'll show you the other method that I use on the rest of these. So you just make a hole there in your cardboard, take the longevity spinach, stick it down into the soil as far as it'll go without breaking it, cover it back up. Some of these may die off at first, but eventually they're going to grow. And there you have it, 10-minute food forest. This is just the first step, but you do this a few times and you connect them. Before you know it, it starts growing. And don't forget, we love you younger generations. Don't listen to all that bullcrap on the media. I want to share my experiences and my knowledge as much as possible to help you prepare for what's coming.